about 4 years ago, a man who's dead now, an old friend, calls me on the phone and said, Google yourself, hit the Wikipedia link, and sue. And I Googled and hit the Wikipedia link, and there was a 6-sentence biography. It said the following: John Seigenthaler in the early 1960s was administrative assistant to Robert Kennedy. True. After the death of President Kennedy and his brother, Seigenthaler was a chief suspect in both their assassinations. Third sentence was, he defected to the Soviet Union for 12 years. Nothing was ever proved. He returned, and you smiled. When I read it, I laughed out loud. I'm a suspected assassin. And, you know, I knew about Wikipedia. I hadn't visited it much, but I knew what it was, and I knew anybody could participate, and suddenly I'm sort of smiling because I know I was never a suspect in either of those assassinations. I mean, I was Bobby Kennedy's pallbearer. I lived with him 6 months and wrote a book with him. I chair the John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Awards every year at the Kennedy Library. I was their friend. And anyway, I think about it, laugh about it, begin to worry about it. And I suddenly get a call from a young woman who had been an intern with the Seigenthaler Center at Vanderbilt, who was now a graduate student at the University of Hawaii. And she called, she was virtually in tears. Her classmates are mostly from Asia. She had told them about interning with us and about me. And they had gone where you would have thought, to Wikipedia. And she said, they believe you had something to do with this. You must do something. And about that time, my son called and said, look, don't laugh about this. You're not the only John Seigenthaler. I'm a John Seigenthaler, and I'm in journalism, and my son Jack, then 10 years old, is John Seigenthaler. And he said there are 24 mirror sites of Wikipedia that have exactly the same thing on it this morning, and it's being read all around the world, who knows by how many people. Dad, you got to do something about it. So I called Jimmy Wales, the founder of Wikipedia, and I said, would you do me a favor? Would you get my biography up on your website and take a look at it with me? And he did. He said, well, I don't know you. You're not Bob Woodward after all, but I know enough to know this must be wrong, and so I'm going to bury it in the archives. And only 1,200 administrators at Wikipedia can read it. And I said, look, I'm not comfortable with anybody seeing this. Can't you just kill it? He said, that's against the rules of our community. He said, this is a website created to provide intellectual democracy. And anonymity is part of our community's culture. And I said, well, I'm sure it is, but this is wrong. Just tell me who did it. He said, I don't have the slightest idea. He said, I can tell you what the IP number is, where it traces, which meant he could take me to the company that provided online service to the person who did it. We all have IP numbers. Internet Protocol number, we don't know we have them perhaps, but we can all, everybody can be traced at least to the corporation with which you do business. So, well, I had a fellow on our staff at the center, and he had already told me it was Bell South, so I've reduced the size of the world to 12 states. Somewhere in 12 states, somebody said I was suspected assassin and a defector of communism. All right. Jimmy says, I can't help you. I don't know who did it. I don't have any way to trace it. I can only take it to the IP number. But, you know, after all, I'm publisher and editor of newspaper for all those years. I've reasonably well known, was involved in the Kennedy administration. I know people at Bell South, and I call them. I said, look, I've been done wrong by somebody who's one of your customers. And would you please just let me know who it is? And I thought I could handle it off the record, you know. I know the guy, and he calls back and said, John, I can't do it. We're bound by the Federal Privacy Act. I am bound to protect the identity of the person who said that. I'm offended by it. I know how you feel. It's terrible. I know by this time thousands and hundreds of thousands of people have access to this, but I can't do a thing about it. And he said, why don't you get your lawyer to call my lawyer? And I did, but the result of it was the same. Now, the last thing I wanted to do was sue anybody. What's the founder of the First Amendment Center at Vanderbilt University doing suing somebody who says something bad about them? That was out of character for me. So I never thought about filing a suit. But that's sort of near the punchline. And this story doesn't go on interminably. I'll try to bring it to a close. But after 4 months, I had thought my son and I together maybe have enough investigative reporting skills to figure out who did this. And so we start trying to run it down. And I'm trying other sources at Bell South. Because that clearly, if I can get my foot in the door there, somebody can give me a little leak and whisper in my ear. And I'm not going to sue them, but I am damn well going to have a confrontation with them. And I'm going to say, why did you do this to me? Why did you hurt my friend in Hawaii? Why are you harassing my son and my grandson with this stuff? I want to have that confrontation. And the more I thought about it, having one smile, I'm now pissed off. I mean, I want to know. And I cannot find out. And finally, I said, well, you know, I can write. And I do have a friend who succeeded me at USA Today. And I called him, I said, I'd like to write a column, tell what happened to me, and I want to identify Wikipedia as an unreliable resource tool. Irresponsible and unreliable, those are my words, and the column appears and the roof falls in. I get massive reactions. On the one hand, I'm inundated with people who say, I'm so glad you wrote that, it happened to me. Let me tell you my story. And there are hundreds of those. And I get emails and telephone calls, some through the US mail. The other side is I am inundated online, and that biography that has been dropped, it now shows up again. And beyond that, there is a deluge of venomous, vulgar, vicious descriptions of me. There is no vulgar word that you can come to your mind that doesn't identify me. And it goes on for months and months and months. The last one, March 5th, I think finally Jimmy Wales, after 4 years, put a block on it. He and I had a confrontation together before an audience of students, and I think suddenly it dawned on him, this has gone on too long. And so since March 5th of last year, when I was identified as having raped Jacqueline Kennedy, there have been no new attacks.